shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatterspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for watching. Good morning, welcome to an early NUFC Matters. It is an Ask Gibbo, and it's my pleasure to welcome John Gibson. How are you, John?
I'm good, my friend. Nice to be back.
Yes, good to see you, mate. And this will be your last show for about a month. John's got his summer holidays to enjoy. And just a little update on Malcolm. Me and John, as always, we're having a chat about Mal. No real change. Got a few things still going on in his life, but hopefully we'll be back with us at the start of next season, all being well. So, as always, we'll pass on your best wishes. Malcolm does dip in and out the show as well. I know that much. So, fingers crossed he will be back with us in August, but we wish him well. So, Newcastle United finished their season, John, with a 1-0 defeat at home to Everton. It was the party pooper of Pickford that we expected. Had a pretty good game, it has to be said. Newcastle didn't play badly, just couldn't break a resolute Everton down. But at the end of the game, there was that nervous wait on the pitch. But the lads got the news. It filtered through that they were in the Champions League. And all in all, a thoroughly enjoyable and satisfying season for all, John.
Yeah, I mean, I was staggered on the last day by the Everton match. I thought they would turn up in flip-flops and we would be so aggressive, would blow them away. And it was the exact opposite. You would think they had something to play for, and we went through the motions. But enough of that. I mean, I spent as much time in the press box, Steve, talking to people to my left and right about what the scores were at Aston Villa and Manchester United and everything else, just to make certain we were going to get through. And then, I mean, on the final whistle, I never thought I'd ever be grateful to Manchester United for anything. But I was grateful for that afternoon for what they did. I was grateful to the blunder referee that chalked off a Villa goal where the ball wasn't in the hands of the goalkeeper, etc., etc. But you know what? Within an hour of that final whistle and having realised we were in the Champions League, etc., I felt, hey, I shouldn't be grateful. I shouldn't be saying thank you to anybody. Newcastle deserved what they got over this season, over the 38 games in the league and the cup competitions. We won a trophy and we qualified for the Champions League. That is a tremendous season. And you know, I'm out to laud that season and to see all the plus parts of that season, of which there's many. And, you know, the gratitude to other people quickly went, Steve, because the truth of the matter is the gratitude was on 1.5 hours on the last day of the season. But over the whole season, this was outstanding for Newcastle to win their first domestic trophy in 70 years and finish fifth top qualifying for the Champions League is a heck of a double.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, I wasn't too downhearted. I knew it would be a tough game. Everton have done well under David Moyes since he went back there. They had a decent away record. But, yeah, tiredness, I think, crept in a little bit. Certainly, Alexander Isak, I think, John, was just a name on the team sheet. He wasn't the Alexander Isak that has led us to trophy glory this year.
No, he wasn't. I mean, he was patched up and sent out there for one last time. Because it isn't just a matter of what he might give us, it's a matter of the fear he puts in the opposition, where he drags two people around who mark him because they're desperately scared not to. So it was important. I mean, all he did at the end was make it abundantly clear how much we need to buy a centre-forward backup this summer, because Callum Wilson's infinitely not that, and Asula's not ready yet. So, I mean, that's all the Isaac thing did. But, you know, I got to look back on the season, Steve, afterwards and think about it, and try to put it into perspective. And two things struck me. The League Cup performance at Wembley, and perhaps I'm in a privileged position, Steve, because age has got to give you something, and age gives me the fact that I've seen most of the teams that have gone before that have been successful with Newcastle, because I was around and about. And I look back on that performance at Wembley, and it was so magnificent. I think it's the best winning performance by a Newcastle United side since 1951, which is quite a thing to say. And why do I say that? 1969, when we won the European Fairs Cup, it was a game with two legs, as we know, but it was a game of two halves. In each leg, we only played for 45 minutes. The other 45 minutes was indifferent. Was in the first leg, we scored 3 goals in the first 45 minutes. In the second leg, we were 2 down at half time, but we scored 3 goals in the second 45 minutes. It wasn't sustained performance in 1969. In 1952 and 55 in the FA Cup, both times, Steve, we won against 10 men. The opposition had an injury. There was no subs in those days, so they had to labour on with 10 men, so we won against 10 men. So this was the best performance in winning a trophy since 1951, pardon me, when Newcastle won their first FA Cup of the 50s. It was a tremendous performance because it was against Blackpool. Stanley Matthews was supposed to get his cup winners medal and didn't that day. And I mean, I watched them as a kid, the 350s, but I talked to Jackie as a friend later on, and Jackie Milburn said of the 3 finals he played in, the 51 team was by far the best. And I think this performance matched up to 51. As far as the team is concerned, Steve, the actual team at Newcastle, I've been thinking of that. And, you know, I think it's the best team. It's not since 1951 and 1996. I don't think for 1 second this team is better than those 2 teams, but it can perhaps match it. The 51 team we've talked about. The 1996 team was the first year of the Entertainers finishing runners-up in the Premier League, when they led the league from August to mid-March. And it was the team without Shearer. Shearer come for the second season. But this team we've got now is better than the 1969 team. They might have won the bigger trophy, a European trophy, but they qualified from 10th. In the season they won the first cup, they only finished 9th. So, you know, they did exceptionally well in Europe, but they weren't easy on the eye like this side can be at the moment. They were very workmanlike, they were very disciplined, they got the ball forward quickly, etc., etc. But what this team's achieved in the last season has been something we shouldn't underestimate, because of the end being like it was on the final day. It was a terrific achievement, and the League Cup will live with me forever. The performance at Wembley was absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. We'll get Gibbo's top moments in the second half of the show. John actually says, I loved Gibbo's books about 69 Fairs Cup campaign and win. It was before I was born, but those chapters made me feel I was there. Is John considering a new volume to mark this last season?
That's a thought, John. I'm not at the moment, because having written 16 books, I'm about all booked out, as they say. And I've tried to resist doing books of recent times. But it's been so terrific, I could easily be tempted. It has been terrific. I'm in a privileged position because I watched all the 50s teams as a kid win the cup 3 times. I was with Newcastle in Budapest in 69, and I've been part of this resurgence now, and it has been terrific, and I really think there's more to come, and I think the best is still to come. This has been a good season, but the seasons ought to get better than this one's been, and that's what's exciting and what we have to look forward to. All I'm looking for now is the powers that be at St James's Park to play as big a blinder as Eddie and the team did in the season. I mean, in the autumn, the winter, and the spring, the team were magnificent. I'm looking for the second team in the summer to be just as magnificent in the transfer market and give us a real front foot feeling going into the Champions League next season.
We've been all, excited about this transfer window. Newcastle, of course, haven't spent money in the last few windows. Very little, it has to be said. Paul Mitchell has exited the club. Newcastle fans are looking at one door, the entrance door for players coming in, but a big departure above. And this comes at a time as well when Darren Eales is obviously stepping down due to ill health, which will be happening this month. His time is coming to an end in the job. So two huge positions to fill in the boardroom. Obviously, we've seen, Saudi representatives coming into the club and having more of a presence at the club. But what's your feelings about Mitchell's departure? Will it affect us in this transfer window?
Well, I don't. The first reaction when we got the news, Steve, was wow and oh, isn't it timing awful to lose the guy that leads your negotiations just as the window's about to open? On the surface, looked awful. I don't think it's quite as bad as we first thought. Mitchell's going to go because, for one of the reasons, Eales was his big supporter. Eales got him here and he was his big supporter and he's about to lose Eales. But I had a feeling that although we put a sticking plaster over an open wound, I don't think the relationship between him and Eddie was ever the way it had to be. From that day, excuse me, early on when he come out and said Newcastle's transfer business is not fit for purpose, we had the amazing thing of Eddie sort of saying, "Can I work with the new regime?" It's saying it publicly, which he never does. And I feel that while there was a truce, it was never as good as it could be. And this pushes Eddie temporarily centre stage, almost like the old manager from the old days when Kevin Keegan and Joe Harvey actually bought the players they wanted when there wasn't such a thing as a sporting director. It puts him centre stage with Steve Nixon, who's well thought of, has a very good reputation, and is well liked and gets on well with Eddie. I think the Paul Mitchell thing was living on borrowed time, and with hindsight, I'm not surprised that it's happened. I think Eddie got himself in a very strong relationship, in a very strong position with the Saudi owners by doing what he did this season, winning Newcastle their first trophy and finishing in the Champions League. And I think he made it abundantly clear he found life difficult under the current circumstances. And if that happened with what Eddie's achieved in the last season, the powers that be were always going to back Eddie, not somebody else. And so Eddie's position has been rubber stamped. It's been confirmed as being all powerful. And I think that's only for the good. And I don't think we'll suffer this window without Mitchell because we've got Eddie, his nephew, and Steve Nixon to drive forward with what is going to happen while we wait for a new director of sport to come in, who we hope Eddie might have some input with. Eddie just had Mitchell foisted upon him by Eales and by the owners, and that was a different ballgame.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange situation, isn't it? I mean, this person has to work hand in hand with Eddie Howe. You would think that, the owners would, potentially sound Eddie out about people, or he would be involved in the process. But it clearly just doesn't look like that's happened. And,
No.
Obviously Dan Ashworth came in with his ideas. Rumours were abound straight away from the press pack that, that he didn't really see eye to eye with Eddie. And Mitchell, it has to be said, although he came in with a good reputation and unearthing gems was a thing that we saw mentioned by a lot of press guys, you just have to pick up one or two football biographies written by ex-managers to tell you what they think of Mitchell. So it really came as no surprise to me that he left. And I guess Ramayan putting his arm around Eddie Howe, and the way that he made him beeline for him at that end of season walk around the pitch against Everton. I think that told you a lot. He's very pleased with the job Eddie's doing, and he doesn't want to upset him.
Yeah. And I mean, if you've got, it sounds harsh, Steve, but if you had to lose one or the other, you know which one you would rather lose. You certainly don't want to lose Eddie, because Eddie's turned this club around absolutely magnificently, and is obsessive about the club. The club's a great fit for Eddie. Eddie's a great fit for the club, and this is a natural progression of the way. Mitchell is a very egotistical, believes in himself hugely. That's not a bad thing, but it can be if it leaves no wiggle room in personal relationships. He ruffled a few people behind the scenes when he first come in, not just Eddie. And as you say, without naming names, if you read a few biographies of former managers, sometimes Paul Mitchell gets a mention that is not too complimentary, shall we say. So, it was perhaps inevitable. The timing of it may not be the best in the world, but I'd rather it come now than come at the end of the summer when we've perhaps made a mess of the transfer window. Because, I'm not necessarily blaming Paul Mitchell, but we had an awful last window where we spent the whole of the window trying to get Gay from Crystal Palace, putting up our offer by about 5 million every time, minuscule, until all the time had gone by. It was all too late, and we got nobody. We've got to do a lot better this summer. And I know one or two punters have got onto me, Steve, and are a little bit worried because Eddie was urging us to start front foot in the transfer market, saying that all the best guys go quickly if you don't. And people have seen the Brentford winger go, and another goalkeeper go elsewhere, and Delap go to Chelsea. Targets that were genuine Newcastle targets, and they're worried in case Eddie's not going to get his big targets this summer because Chelsea's taken one, Manchester United's taken one, and we haven't as yet. But it's early days. Let's wait and see what happens. But I'm looking for us to be front foot and not do everything in the last week of August.
Lots of questions coming in. It is Ask Gibbo, so let's do a few of these in this first half of the show. Geordie Tune for Life says, John, is there any truth in what Martin Hardy has written about Mbeumo wanting around £250,000 a week? Manchester United channels are saying it's sour grapes from Newcastle fans and a journalist. Thanks in advance. Yeah, I mean, look, Mbeumo has been, pushed as a major target for Newcastle. Again, nothing confirmed by the club, but a lot of media speculation would suggest we've certainly looked at him. And why wouldn't he? He's had one of his best seasons as a professional player. He's 25. He scored goals. He can play outside right, old outside right. He can play up front. He would probably fit the mold that Eddie is trying to create. It looks as if he's a good lad in the dressing room as well. He seems to tick all those kind of boxes. But and I think Chris has probably nailed it here. Players can choose another team. It's hardly how other clubs' fault. You can't force a player to want you, nor do you want to. Yeah, I mean, whether he was a target or whether he wasn't a target, you can't blame somebody who a career is very short in football and can be shorter if you get a serious injury. If he's not going to get the money that he wants at Newcastle, he's clearly going to go to a club that can pay him the wages that he wants. If that's the case, do you think that's the reason that he hasn't come to Newcastle?
Yeah, I do. I do think that's the reason. And by the way, he was a target. There's absolutely no question about that. The club's not going to come out and officially say these are the players we would like, and then we don't get him. So there's always, was he a target or not? Believe you, take it from me, he was a major target to be the outside right, in the same way as Trafford is a major target to be the goalkeeper. We thought we would have a very good chance of getting him by getting in the Champions League, because he had indicated during last season that if he left, the big lure for him would be the Champions League. Now, obviously, that's fallen down because Manchester United aren't in the Champions League or not in Europe at all. But he's taken the biggest wage packet he could get. And that is true, and it's not sour grapes as far as Manchester United are concerned by Newcastle fans. It's just a fact. And yeah, he's sacrificed prestige, i.e. playing in the Champions League, for cash, i.e. the higher wage Manchester United can afford. If we paid the same wage, we would be smashing our wage structure and immediately would have Gordon and Bruno and Isaac knocking on the door and saying, wait a minute, we should be on the same wage as him. We can't afford to do that. I can understand, the background of the guy in that money's precious, a career's um, a short time. A lot of these lads admirably send money home to their families to help keep them, etc., etc. So wages have become hugely important. It's all right for us saying, well, you should chase prestige and go for the Champions League when they know they're going to be finished in about 7 years' time, and they need money to secure the future of them and their family. And I'm talking about their family back home, not their immediate family. So yes, he's gone down that route. We lost the lap because he's gone down the Chelsea route, where there's a lot of money and a lot of things happen there. Fair enough, he took that. They are in the Champions League. And this is the sort of thing that you're faced with, which is why Newcastle will be pushing now, because they've effectively got to look, because Delap was a huge on the list of possible centre forwards. They'll be looking now for the alternatives, because the list didn't consist of one player for each position. The alternative list for the outside rights, the alternative list for the centre forwards. And if they lost Trafford because he was staying at Burnley or going elsewhere, then they would have to look at the alternative goalkeeping list. But the man they want is Trafford. Terms are already agreed with Trafford himself. It's just whether they could have got him for 20 million in the last window, and he'll now cost at least 30 million, having set the record he set last season for clean sheets. He kept 12 successive clean sheets through the winter at one stage. So, and Burnley will desperately try not to let him go. But the financial deal with him is already done and was in place in January. So we've got to see what happens there. But we need to be on the front foot, and it would be lovely to get a breakthrough on some player early doors, just to settle nerves with fans, with other players, etc., etc.
Do you think we'll get one in this window, John? The one that's open at the moment, temporarily for the Club World Cup, or do you think we're going to have to be more patient and wait until the next window?
I've got a feeling it'll be the next window, Steve. I would love it to be this window, because it would mean we'd got off to early doors. And when it isn't this window, there's one or two fans, and I understand that. And because of the last three windows, it's completely natural. One or two of these fans will panic and say, well, there's a mini window gone and we haven't bought again. How soon can we do it? It would be a wonderful statement of intent if we got one through this window and did the rest afterwards. But if I was a betting man, I would say it'll happen in the next window, not in this one.
Okay, questions still coming in. Do you think we'll go for players from abroad who fit the bill? Our homegrown Premier-proven players plus agents are financially out to kill us. Surely we must have some on the radar, says Yvonne. And I guess that would probably tie in with what we've done in the past. We didn't really hear much about Alexander Isak, Sandro Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes before they touched down at Newcastle Airport, John.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of... you see, in an ideal world, how often do we say that? But the world's never ideal, of course. In an ideal world, we would get hardened Premier League players who are under the age of 25. And, the Brentford kid fit into that. Trafford, although he's had a year in the Championship, fits into that. He's one of England's three goalkeepers away at the moment with the national side. We want to reduce the age limit with the age of the squad. We're desperate to do that. I mean, we've got 5 goalkeepers, and all 5 are in their 30s. Now, I know that's not necessarily old for a goalkeeper, but they're all in their 30s. We've got Trippier at 34. We've got Byrne and Shaw at 33. We've got Wilson at 33. We want to bring so in Eddie's ideal world, we would sign players who have already played in the Premier League in this country, so they're acclimatized, they know what it's about, etc., etc. In under the either 25 or under 25 in an ideal world, but the world isn't ideal, and it could well be that a couple of players will have to come from abroad. Where, in fairness, we've done very well in the past with the players you've named, like Bruno, Tonali, and Isa.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting summer, that's for certain. Any other questions you've got on transfers? We will try and get to them. So keep them coming in. Got about half an hour left. Alan, let's put this on the list, John. We said we'll do it. So when you're away on your jollies, John, can you plot and plan your next part of your Gibbo's music memories? I might have to send you the first one to remind you what you talked about, because it's probably been a year and a half since you did it. Probably send you the link for that. But yeah, let's do it, John. When you come back from your summer holidays in a month's time, let's do that before the season starts, and let's have another Gibbo music memories. We'll certainly do that, John. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Alan, for asking. It was good. I had so much fun doing that with Steve, because it's the other part of my life that I love, and it's often intertwined with the football, with people like Rod Stewart and Brian Johnson, and they often overlap, if you like. And there's a lot more that I didn't put into that first one, and it's just good fun, and it's a good summer topic, Steve, when football might be stagnating on occasions when it's not the transfer business. So I would love to do that. Do send me the link, Steve, so I don't repeat myself, and I'll come up with a load more stories. Of course I will.
Yeah, Alan Harrison says a player who chooses cash over testing himself against Europe's best might not be the best fit for us anyway, which I would agree with as well. You know, I mean, Delap's another one who, you know, has been linked heavily with Newcastle, of course, been linked with a lot of people because of the £30 million release fee. Looks as if he's all but a Chelsea player next year. But again, that says a lot about the ambition, doesn't it, of somebody like Delap? Yes, Chelsea have got European football. However, you know, is he going to play every week? Is he going to play every game? I know we could probably say that about Newcastle because Isak would be in his way. But I guess the other question mark over somebody like Delap for me was always going to be, is he a one-season wonder? Ferguson, obviously at Brighton, did very similar. Then got hit with injuries. So you've got to be very careful when you're spending money in the Premier League these days, especially when you've got PSR hanging over you, John.
Yeah, and you know, this business of how ambitious are you and how money orientated are you, and I'm not criticizing either, but it's really comes into sharp focus in football now, because you get people go to Saudi like Mitrovic, you know, our old player who left Fulham, and they go to Saudi for the dough, and naturally you're going to get your head turned. If you or I offered the money the Saudis are offering, you would say, good God, can I turn it down? I'm set for life. But you get people that take that route. You get people like the Brentford boy who's going to Manchester United for the cash ahead of if the Champions League with Newcastle. And then you get the other people like Fernandes at Manchester United who could have made 200 million by signing for Saudis and has turned it down because he's earning good money where he is, or if he gets a transfer to another top European club, but he wants to stay at the sharp end of European football, and he's turned down that sort of money. I must admit, as Alan said, I like players who will put ambition as high on their list as cash, because none of them are being offered peanuts, Steve. They're all making money that would make you and I eyes water. So they're not getting peanuts. So I like to see ambition go with a good wage structure rather than just chase the buck.
Before we start handing out the Gibbos for last season, I wanted to ask you about the ground, John. Any updates on the ground? I think we were hoping, you know, maybe there would be some kind of announcement, you know, that there'd been some movement. But I mentioned this last night on the show. I just hope we're not heading towards a 1990s impasse like we had with Sir John Hall, where suddenly something that looked so simple is now going to become increasingly more difficult.
I know. The silence has been deafening, hasn't it? And of course, now their attention will be diverted because two of the big hitters behind the scenes, Eels and Mitchell, are leaving. So they'll be concentrating on getting those people in place and taking the eye off the ball somewhat with the ground. No, there's been absolute nothing said of consequence recently. It doesn't mean that things aren't going on behind the scenes, but we could do with a breakthrough, couldn't we? We could do with if in an ideal world, there's the expression again, we would like to know what's happening with the ground, what's happening with the training stadium, and what's happening behind the scenes, and get a couple of signs in. So there's enough work there to keep them going for the next week and a half.
Definitely, yeah. Geordie Tuber Life, I mean, yes, 50 grand a week to me or John or you or anyone watching the show, it would be a wonderful wage. But when you see footballers now getting 250,000 pounds, 300,000 pounds, some even these huge names like Mbappe and that making ridiculous money, when other footballers see that, they're not going to be happy with 50 grand a week, mate. So Newcastle's wage structure has been a problem for years. I mean, little stories that come out when me and John do the talkings, and I'm sure a lot of you have been to them and you've heard the horror stories of what the players were on. We heard, John and I have spoken to David Ginola on many occasions, and he couldn't believe that Newcastle was sharing a changing room with the university down at Durham. It's little things like that, and we've always been behind, and we're miles behind in terms of commercial revenue. And until we can change our wage structure to match the likes of Manchester United, then it will always be playing second fiddle to some players, because some players put money above ambition, John.
Aye, I mean, I remember, and I know it's all relevant, the age to today, but I remember in the 70s, Paul Cannell, who was the backup centre forward to Supermac, I remember Paul Cannell playing in the Newcastle first team in the 70s, and his basic wage without add-ons was £35 a week.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? He's in Newcastle's first team. And I know there was appearance money, etc., etc. I revealed it in the Chronicle, an exclusive. And a week later, he got a huge rise in his wage. So at least that did him so good. But he was playing in the first team in Newcastle in the 70s when Newcastle played in 2 cup finals, 74 and 76. Cannell was our sub. There was only one sub in those days, was our sub in the 76 League Cup final. And he was on 35 quid a week.
Amazing. It was the days when footballers had second jobs as window cleaners, except to learn a living. You are right. Speaking of ex-players, it would be remiss of me not to promote this. Our end of season party, 27th of June, at the Irish Centre, John. And it is you, John Beresford, Steve Howie, and Steve Watson, which is taking place. Joe Allen will be in attendance, but it will be John who will be hosting the event. And it is at the Tyneside Irish Centre. It is for the North Tyneside Age UK Dementia Charity. John, you've worked with these lads many, many times. And they're going to be doing an hour on the night time because it is our end of season due. So we'll have various raffles going on the night time and a shop there to try and raise some money for the Dementia Charity. But this will be a great event, John. And you always enjoy speaking to the lads, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, what we've got to remember is those 3 lads, Steve, were part of the Entertainers, which is the best side and the most successful side in terms of league position, finishing second top 2 successive years. Even higher in the league than Eddie's current side. That's what Eddie's aiming at now, what they achieved. These 3 lads played in the Entertainers, and I've worked with all 3, as you know, and you have many, many, many times. I mean, I was with Steve Howie, as you know, just a few days back at Ramside Hall, and they're terrific guys with a fund of tales to tell, because those were the days of Kevin Keegan and Tino Asprilla and Shearer, and so there's, I mean, a lot of inside tales to tell. So many that always come up with some more original ones and not just regurgitating what they've said before. But they're a joy to work with. They're fun guys, and they're very, very important in the history of Newcastle United.
Yeah, great stuff. 20 quid a ticket is the price on NUFC Matters. .co.uk. I'll just put it up there. There you go. Get yourself onto the website if you want to buy the remaining tickets. There's some available on voucher as well if you search up the event. But will be a cracking night that, and be good to catch up with a lot of people who watch the show. So we did have another question from Yvonne. Do you think we've been hamstrung by older players that have been brought in to consolidate our Premiership position? It gives us a difficult hand in younger recruitment. Our young kids aren't ready yet. So, yeah, I mean, Newcastle did have to bring in some experienced heads. You know, they had to bring in Nick Pope, Kieran Trippier, Dan Burn, all been wonderful, wonderful servants to Newcastle, it has to be said, and helped us win that trophy. You know, has that hamstrung us a little bit?
Well, it got us out of the hole that we're in, Steve, and that was the most important thing at the time. And yes, we are sort of caught in the middle now, because players, as I've said, like Pope, all 5 goalkeepers, Trippier, Byrne, Shaw, Wilson, all in their 30s. We've had all these kids brought in who are now playing in the under 17s, 18s, 19s, 21s, who are going to be great for tomorrow. We brought in Livramento and Hall for tomorrow, didn't we, when we first got them, and had that season of doing nothing, but we're reaping their reward now. What we've got to look for now, and this is the difficulty, is finding people up to the age of 25 who have good experience still in their early years and are able to go straight in the team to bring the age of the team down and get us up and running. And we've seen with people like Hall and Livramento that we can sign young men who can be an absolute first team asset. And that is what Eddie Howe's looking to do this window. And of course, that's where James Trafford fits into it as an example, age-wise and experience-wise. And we've got to remember, Trafford is at this moment away with Byrne and Gordon with the full England squad.
Yeah, interested. Matty Targett being linked with a move to Burnley, says Darren. I mean, he's one of the names that we're surely going to get out of the door, John. You would expect him, Longstaff and Wilson probably to be the 3 names.
Yeah, I tell you what, if they give us James Trafford plus 20 million, they can have Targett.
There could be a little bit of wheeling and dealing in that way, John. You never know.
I mean, Matt, God bless him, but he's got to be got rid of. Wilson's got to be got rid of. About 3 of the 5 goalkeepers have got to be got rid of. We do need a clear out. But the sort of clear out we're talking about there, Steve, isn't going to raise big bucks. You know, you're not going to get big bucks for Target.
No.
Wilson's going to be a free. You're going to get him off the wage bill. You may have to bite the bullet with a Longstaff or a Willock or whatever to try to get a few quid in, because we've got to get some money in to get others out. But it's going to be a neat balancing act. But we could do with a new sporting director being Houdini.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if those 4 go, for example, and we need 4 already, that means we need 8 players in my mind, you know, because the squad needs to be big enough to compete at all levels: FA Cup, League Cup, Champions League, Premier League. You know, it's going to be an interesting sum of that, to say the least. As you know, Gary, we tend not to speculate on here. So, John, anything concrete in potentially these teams looking at Willock or other teams sniffing around Joe Willock?
Yeah, there's nothing concrete. Fulham have asked Newcastle what the position is with Joe Willock. Would he be available? Might he come available? And Newcastle's just left the door open and said, you know, we want our priorities who we sign first. Depending on who we sign, some players may become available, but they may not. But yes, they've certainly asked about Willock, and people will. And he's a London boy, brought up at Arsenal, so he would fit in, you would think, to the Fulham criteria quite easily. People have asked about Longstaff. You know, Everton and Leeds and have asked about Longstaff, but there's nothing certain there. And the difficulty with Longstaff is that although he's not been a regular starter like he once was for us, he's homegrown, Steve. Now, that means if you sell him, is 100% profit. But it also means that when you're looking at the criteria of the Champions League, which is 4 players have got to have been brought up by Newcastle between the ages of A and B, Longstaff fits into that, and not many do. So, do we need to keep him for that reason? It is really a real balancing act. It's going to take Houdini to get out of all this. And as you say, if you let players go, like say we sold Longstaff and Willett, this is just theory, Steve. If we did, have we got enough in midfield, or have we got to buy in midfield? Lewis Miley would step up to the boards, obviously. What's coming through that might also be there, because you're right, if we sell one and we've got to then buy for that guy's position, it would be sort of 8 out and 8 in, wouldn't it? Which is not going to happen. Miley would be a help in midfield, obviously. We could possibly afford to lose one midfielder, but certainly not 2.
No, certainly not. Just for those of you who subscribe to our fanzine this season, John's contributed. Lots of the people who are regulars on here have contributed. The final issue of your forced fanzine subscription will be heading out. Our designer's had some fun with his AI, clearly. He's gone with a big Dan Burn on there. But thank you for that, Rob Maltman. Your design work's been exceptional for us this year. Really appreciate it. But that will be winging its way to you sometime at the end of June. The contributors are busy penning their pieces as we speak, and that will be sent out. And there will be a fanzine next season. Lots of people asking, is there going to be a fanzine next season? Yes, there will be. Details to be announced. Postage has gone up, but I am going to knock £1.50 off the overall subscription charge, because obviously there was a confusion with the post office on the last issue, and I think a lot of people had to pay £1.50 to get it through the post, which wasn't ideal. So we've knocked £1.50 off the subscription next year. But the charity that will benefit is Age UK, dementia charity. So that is something that we will continue to do next year. So you will be able to have your little read. And there's Rob says, very welcome. It looks great that on screen. It does. Big Dan Burn, Rob. You've created a new legend. Okay, 20 minutes left. Let's get into John Gibbo's for this season. John, in no particular order, give us your game of the season.
Yeah, this is without having had deep thought, because we've just sort of lobbing them up at me, and there's a first reaction. I mean, it's got to be the obvious one. The performance against Liverpool at Wembley ticked every single box in the Gibbo criteria. It won us our first trophy in domestic trophy in 70 years, our first trophy of any sort for 50 odd years, for over half a century. We're playing the best side in the Premier League, because Liverpool become Premier League champions. So they are the best side in the Premier League. And we outplayed them from kick-off to final whistle. The performance of every player on that pitch was outstanding. And I was bursting with pride just watching it. And I'm certain you were, Steve, and all the guys listening now. And 300,000 people come to say thank you a week or 10 days later, when the guys came home. So I guess it's the obvious one, but it will take some topping in the future to have a better performance than we had against Liverpool at Wembley.
Okay, I'm going to tie this in, because I have a feeling that you may suggest a goal in the final is your goal of the season, John. I might be wrong.
Which one that would be. Yes, indeed. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yeah, big Dan Burn. Wonderful header, beautifully executed from distance, cleverly done in terms of a beautiful corner, driven in at pace, not with snow on it, pulling off a little guy trying to mark his navel and just belting the ball into the back of the net. And Dan Burn's goal, yes, Isaac scored 25, and some of them he scored before Christmas, were stupendous. And some of Tonali's, I mean, have you ever seen a more thunderous shot than Tonali? I mean, the one he had from out wide, the other ones, I mean, when he drives a ball, he drives as hard as Supermac or Shearer or Jackie Milburn or any centre forward ever did. When he connects with the ball, it's like a missile. He strikes it so wonderfully well. So there was a lot of good goals. But Big Dan will take some beating, won't he? I mean, Gray's monument in the penalty area at Wembley, sight to behold.
Most improved player, John, for Newcastle?
Well, I would have to go, and this is all off the top of my head without giving it too much thought. I would have to go for Jacob Murphy, you know. The season he had, Jacob Murphy's 29, he's 30-year-old, if you like. He's a late developer. At best, he always looked like a squad player. At times, he looked like a player that should be sold. The only reason he wasn't in the old days is because we didn't have the superstars we have now. But, you know, we talk about whether Willock could be sold now and Longstaff could be sold now and Maxi was sold. He would have fit into that quite easily at one time. He has come along this season, and his assists and his goals and his consistent level of performance, quite frankly, has been much better than I ever thought he would be capable of doing. People can have a one-off good game, Steve. It happens where everything you try comes off and you've been terrific. That happens. But he's done it with consistency. And so for improvement, I would have to go Jacob Murphy, I think.
Okay, and this one's a bit trickier, probably the trickier of the four questions, and that's your player of the season, John.
Oh, it is tricky. Honest to God, there's 11 players in a team. I could pick 7, and nobody could say I've picked the wrong one. I could pick any of 7. For example, I'll just give you very quick examples, then I'll have to pick one. Of course I will. For example, you can go and say Livramento, right back and left back. Played both like a world beater. Absolute Rolls Royce. Lewis Hall, before he was injured, was in serious contention to be Newcastle's player of the season. And then injuries took him out Wembley and all the big end of the season, and that knocked his chances. Livramento and all become full England internationals in this season. Dan Burn was just sensational. He went from being a trolley pusher at Asda to being man of the match at Wembley when we won a cup final, scored a stupendous header, and then a week later was back at Wembley playing for England. It's 32-year-old, 33 now. I mean, stupendous season. I mean, really incredible. Isaac scored 25 goals in the season, haven't scored 20 odd last season. He's got over 50 in 2 seasons. He won't get it from me because the end of the season he was struggling with an injury and he wasn't quite the player he had been for 3/4 of the season. You could go on and on and on and on, but just by a hair's breadth, I would go for Tonali.
Okay, yeah, be interesting, and we will be finding out the Amigos answers on Friday with that as well. John, I just before we finish up and wrap up tonight, just wanted to look at the projected pots for the Champions League, mate, and there you see it: pot 4, Newcastle United, FC Copenhagen, Sevilla, Monaco, Ferencvaros, of course, memories of that goal by David Ginola, Galatasaray, Celtic, Union SG, Athletic Club, and Newcastle in there as well. I mean, potential games that we could face, and of course, guaranteed 8 games, 4 at home, 4 away. John, new format in the Champions League since we played a couple of seasons ago. But how exciting is it to see Newcastle back in the big time again and that European competition?
Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And in lots of ways, it's more exciting the way it is now than when we were in a couple of years back, because remember, we got the group of death, which was terrific in terms of Paris Saint-Germain, AC Milan. The history of the Borussia Dortmund, the history of the clubs was wonderful, but it was also hugely tough. And they were home and away, so we were seeing the same teams, etc., etc. We're playing 8 teams this time. We're not playing 4 teams. We're playing 8 teams. You know, we've got 4 matches at home, and then 4 different teams away. So they're not home and away fixtures, and it's fascinating, and it's going to be wonderful, and it's good to have guaranteed 8 matches in Europe, because that can be done. And the one point I was trying to make is, you know, the heavy workload Newcastle are going to have, because there's a price to pay for being in the Champions League, can be done. And we've proved it ourselves Steve, because in 2003, I think it was, we went into the Champions League. Bobby Robson was the manager. At that stage, there was two groups. If you survived one group, you didn't go into an open knockout. You went into a second group, if you remember. In that time, we won in the first group at Feyenoord on the last day and went into the second group. That season, 2003, we played 14 Champions League games and still finished third top of the Premier League. Now, that's a phenomenal performance, isn't it? 14 Champions League games and still finish third top of the Premier League. A huge workload can be maintained if the tools are there. And that comes down to the summer getting enough people through the door, because we definitely got to do that. But of course, it's exciting. Of course, it's exciting. It's what we wanted. And there's people that have said to me, well, it would have been nice to be in the Conference League or the Europa League because we could win either of those. We're not going to win the Champions League. Of course, we're not at this stage of development. And yes, I can follow that. It could be a trophy to follow the League Cup trophy, but we want to be at the top table, Steve. We want to eat off the Royal Box menu. We want to have the best teams in Europe jostling with us. We want another day to remember for the rest of our lives, like Newcastle United 4, Paris Saint-Germain 1. We want another one of those, don't we? So we want to be in the Champions League. Wildly exciting, terrific. Let's get a couple of players through the door so we'll go into it full of optimism, and it could be some season ahead.
John, have a wonderful summer. Enjoy your break. We'll have you back on probably the first week in July, and looking forward to hopefully welcoming Super Mac back to the show in time for the new kickoff in August. But have a great summer, mate. Thanks for all your time and effort over the last 9 months.
Same to you. It's been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to starting all over again in July. God bless.
Big thanks to all our sponsors. Skips and Bins. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. Their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel, UK Coach Holidays. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2 crew, driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels, no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the technical side of things. And if you want to listen to us as a podcast, you can find us on Sport Social Podcast Network. We're also available on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. If you want to support the channel, then hit the subscribe button. We still do 7 shows a week. Hit the like button, which is the thumb underneath this video, and click share to your social media. You could also take out a monthly membership or an annual membership at nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. For the lifetime membership, you can pay £25 and get a pen, a beer mat, a fridge magnet, a badge and a keyring and your membership card, and entry into the monthly draw. Some events coming up: 27th of June 2025, the end of season party. Beresford, Howie and Watson will be at the Tyneside Irish Centre with Joe Allen in aid of North Tyneside Age UK. You can get your tickets for that one from nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk or from Woucher. No Covers takes place at the Cluny. That's on the 29th of June, midday till 3:45, and tickets are £10 from theclooney.com or newcastlelegends.com. Northern Horizon, a Blake 7 convention, takes place on the 9th of August, 10 till 4 at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Come and meet some of the cast and crew in aid of Age UK North Tyneside Dementia. Tickets from nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. An evening with Peter Beardsley and Chris Waddle takes place on Friday the 23rd of January 2026 at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. You can get tickets from the box office 0844 249 1000 or from tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk. And Bad Manners are back in the Northeast at the O2 City Hall, Friday the 30th of January 2026. Tickets from ticketmaster.co.uk. And we have copies of The Entertainer's book signed by Les Ferdinand available from nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk.